IKIM FM, Inspirasi Utama Anda. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Dear listeners, you are tuned in to IKIM FM. Whether you are joining us live on the radio or tuning in via Facebook or YouTube, we really appreciate you being here with us. I'm Susanna, fellow at the Center for Economy and Social Studies, Institute of Islamic Understanding Malaysia, IKIM, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Open Forum with our topic today, Retirement with Dignity, Why Private Pensions Matter. So listeners, Malaysia has just celebrated Merdeka, our independence, but as our society rapidly ages, another form of independence becomes more important, which is financial independence in retirement. And today we are asking, what does it mean to retire with dignity? Can EPF withdrawals support us monthly? Why do private pensions matter for our future security? And how do we plan for dignity and purpose beyond just money? And for our conversation on IKIM FM today, we will explore how we can avoid common retirement pitfalls and live with dignity in golden years. To explore these important issues, we are joined by our special guest, Mr. Dean McClelland. Welcome to the program, Dean.
Thanks, Susanna.
Welcome. All right. How are you today?
Very good. Well, it's evening time here in El Salvador.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you for spending your time to join us today with this important issue. Very important issue. I think it's a critical issue. I think not just in Malaysia. Actually, it's a phenomenon all over the world.
Yeah.
So proceed with our first question. With an aging population, financial independence is becoming equally crucial. So how do you define retirement with dignity today? And how can private pensions play a role in achieving lifetime income security?
It's a big question. It's a big question, Susanna. First of all, happy birthday, by the way, again, now that I get to say to your face.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. How do people...
Perhaps that's also part of my plan.
Yeah.
Moving towards your retirement as well.
Exactly. The closer you get, the more real it becomes.
Yeah.
As you get to retirement age. But I think what you were saying is, why are pensions important? Well, the reality is, we're all living much longer than our grandparents used to. But the idea of working until you're 85, 90 years old is really just, it's not on the cards. You're going to retire at some point. And traditionally, or what's been happening for the last 100 years, is that the government will take care of you. And if the government wasn't able to take care of you, it's because you've 10 kids and your kids are going to take care of you. But families are getting smaller now. I think if you look around the world, a lot of our children are ending up with financial burdens. They're not necessarily going to be able to take care of mum and dad if they live for an extra 20 or 30 years in retirement. So really, it's become more and more important that you put away some money and save it, because you're going to have 10, 20, 30 years in retirement, and you need to have money set aside. If you look at the US, we always think of the US as this flagship, financial superpower. But if you look at their social security system, people have been saving into that for 80 years, and it kind of runs out of money in 2033. So we don't know what's going to happen there. We don't know how they're going to solve it. The amount of money that's needed for social security in the US is much higher than the national debt. And everybody is always talking about how can they afford to pay off their national debt. Well, if we're worried about paying off the debt, how on earth are they going to be able to rescue social security? So I think the important point is that you shouldn't be reliant on the government to bail you out and to take care of you in retirement. It's just not feasible anymore. You shouldn't. No parent wants to end up reliant on their children. So the only game in town is that you have to save. You have to put away part of your paycheck, knowing that by the time you reach retirement, hopefully that paycheck has, the amount you put away has grown substantially, and now you're going to be able to kind of draw from that and focus on what you want, focus on family, focus on contributing to society, not be worrying about working yourself until your last day on this earth.
Okay. And how do you train, not just in developed countries like US, how about, developing countries, just like in Malaysia or other Asian nations?
Well, everybody has the same problem. In Japan, you have some of the longest lived people in the world, and they've been saving for 50 years. They reach retirement, they're terrified to spend the money. They put it aside. I think Singapore did a great job putting the CPF together. They had a few problems with that, and then they eventually created CPF Life. But if you look at what Malaysia's done, the EPF is fantastic. It's a flagship product, I think, for most of Asia. It shows what needs to be done. I think when you and I visited the EPF a few years ago, wonderful people. It was such a brilliant day. It was so nice. And ethically, these people are all trying to do the best job they can, and they're really dedicated to it. But actually, it's like that all over the world. But unfortunately, innovation hasn't really been possible. They haven't really evolved the pension sector, but it's super important. And I think Malaysia's leading the way. Maybe there's a few more things Malaysia can do, but they're doing a fantastic job so far. I think when you and I went over there was $200 billion in the EPF, and it's now $300 billion. So clearly it's working. People are putting money aside.
Maybe not all our listeners can understand the concept of EPF and the difference between EPF and CPF in Singapore. Maybe you can, share a little bit on that, to highlight the differences between, these two neighbor countries.
You're putting me on the spot now. So I think CPF, I don't remember the details. Maybe it started 10 years before the EPF. And they said, okay, everybody needs to put money into this retirement fund so that you're taken care of, and so that you don't become a burden to the government or the family. They did a brilliant job. They got everybody saving. But then when what they noticed is that when everybody reached retirement age, they now had access to this pot of money that was bigger than they'd ever seen in their lives.
Okay.
And there was some problems with that. Because there were some people that were kind of drawing immediately all the money, possibly jumping on a boat somewhere else and coming back a year or two later with big smiles in their face, but their pockets were empty. And they started to realize that, this is a problem. Maybe we shouldn't give people this giant chunk of money and let them handle it. And that's when they introduced CPF Life. And the idea with CPF Life is that you'll take a certain amount of the balance and you'll convert it into a lifetime income, so that so that they're not going to spend all the money straight away, and they're always going to have money to rely on in old age. And then obviously the EPF came along. They did the same thing, and in 2020, in the year 2000, I think, Prime Minister Mahathir went out and he said we need to offer a lifetime income. And they put some deals together, presumably with very big prestigious names, and they launched the EPF lifetime income version. But it just didn't work. There was something wrong with it. I don't know what it was, but he was very unhappy with it. And if I'm not mistaken, he ended up cancelling the whole thing within 5 months of launch. But I know the EPF have been working on that, and they're looking to find a solution.
So I think that was the EPF annuity scheme. So that is perhaps people can withdraw their EPF savings to another, we can call it like third party private pension, something like that, but in the form of annuity for that one. But somehow along the way, I think that there were issues with that, and that's why they have to cancel that scheme. But perhaps that is something we can learn from that experience, and we innovate. and come up with a better solution for that. So I'm sure we have so much of more interesting thing for you to share with our listeners today. But for now, let's take a short break. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Forum on our topic today, Retirement with Dignity, Why Private Pensions Matter, with our special guest, Dean McClelland. Okay, Dean, just now we talk about, the experience in Malaysia when they want to design, this concept or this scheme. People can withdraw from their EPF savings to another third party private pension provider, which is the annuity schemes, and those schemes are actually was offered by the insurance and takaful companies. Maybe for this second part of our interview, you can share what one of the biggest worries for retirees is outliving their savings. So many depend heavily on lump sum EPF withdrawals. And from your perspective, what are the common mistakes people make in retirement planning, and how can private pension schemes offer a more sustainable solution?
Okay. Well, I don't necessarily think people are making mistakes. It's just what clearly the EPF is working. $300 billion has been saved, so it is working. The problem is that if you look at all the pensions in the world for the last 40 years, everybody has been focused on save. Just get as much money in, as possible. And really, they never thought about, okay, what's going to happen when you reach retirement? How are you going to spend that money? Now, if we go back to the 2020 or the 2000 annuity program that was launched by the EPF, typically how these things work is that the pension fund does a deal with an insurance company, and the insurance company offers you a fixed and guaranteed income for life. The problem is that the cost of providing that guarantee to the insurance company is very expensive. They have to hold a lot of capital, they have to do lots of hedging, and they have to manage the balance sheet to keep that guarantee in place. And that means that they're very restricted in what they can invest in. But if you look at a traditional pension fund that it still exists very much in the UK, to an extent in the US, you had a portfolio. You had a portfolio run by fiduciaries that were acting in the best interest of the customers to grow that money on their behalf, so that it was ready in retirement. But with the insurance company, it's a very different thing. So annuities they've been around for 2,000 years. They're not incredibly popular, but much more importantly, they're not necessarily as ethically designed as we would like. There is an interest element. That's how it works, and the issue with annuities, full stop, as a replacement for pensions, is that you're essentially entering into a contract with an insurance company where they know up front that they're going to take a degree of profit out of your savings to pay for. They will pay for the cost of providing the money, but they're going to take a profit out of you and pay it to their shareholders, and that's something most people cannot live with. So defined benefit pensions, where we tell you, okay, we'll give you 60% of your salary for the rest of your lives. In the 1980s, they already realized this is not going to work. We can't keep offering these anymore. Annuities, obviously, as we've said, are haram. And they don't necessarily offer great value for money, according to the OECD, which is more or less the government of governments. So what happened about 45 years ago is that they switched to this thing called defined contribution. And defined contribution, all it means is that we know how much you put in. We know how much you put in. It's grown to a certain amount, and now it's up to you to figure out how long you're going to live, what your investment returns are going to be. And once you've made all these calculations, you can now start to calculate how much you can spend in retirement. And I don't think anybody wants to spend their retirement sitting in front of CNBC or something, watching the markets, trying to figure out, should I be invested in this? What's the long-term return going to be? So it's really gotten into a bit of a mess over the last few decades. But there's hope on the horizon.
Okay, so with that defined benefit issue, so what are how does the world react to it right now? I mean, like when we talk about the national debt, it's happening in US, it's happening in our country, in Malaysia as well. So government has this a big challenge actually, to manage the economic and the financial fiscal policy, to have a stable macroeconomic outlook. So yeah, I was wondering, so what will be the trend of for example, the government employees on this defined benefit pension plan?
Well, I know I studied this for Malaysia, but I don't necessarily remember all the numbers. But the problem with defined benefit is that the pension firms are giving you a guarantee of what they're going to pay you, without them knowing whether they're going to have the money or not. Now, they have huge teams managing this to hopefully get it right. But the reality is, it was already known 45 years ago that this is very much a very difficult problem to solve. And if you look at, I'm quite focused on the UK at the moment. There are so many defined benefit schemes that just do not have enough money to be able to meet the obligations to the people that have been saving into them all their lives. And it is no different anywhere else in the world. There's very few defined benefit pension schemes that have more money than they need to pay people. Most of them are borderline, or they're way below, they're way underwater in terms of having the money to pay that. So, defined benefit pensions don't work. Everybody knows this.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I think we are coming up with, closer to hopefully an innovative plan for this. Okay, let's take a short break, everyone, and we'll come back after this with more and more interesting things from Dean. Welcome back to Open Forum on our topic today, Retirement with Dignity, Why Private Pensions Matter, with our special guest, Dean McClelland. Okay, Dean. Globally, we already know that from your sharing, there's much debate on pension system, from defined benefit to defined contributions. So perhaps Malaysia can learn from this. What the lessons can Malaysia learn from these discussions? And beyond money, what does your vision of a dignified retirement look like? And maybe you can share with us how your work with the Tontine Trust can contribute to this retirement problem.
Okay. Well, so I myself, I knew nothing about pensions 8 years ago.
Okay.
I was an investment banker.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about it. I knew defined benefit pensions existed. I knew annuities existed. But I think it was 8 years ago now, I found out through my mother and her friends in the golf club. They'd all retired to Spain and they all had money saved, but they were terrified to spend it. They were so afraid to spend the money. And I'm like,
Okay.
what's the problem? And it was explained to me that, well, we don't know how long we're going to live.
Why was that? How old was your mom that time, at that particular time?
She was already 76, 77.
At that particular time.
Yeah. And,
Alright.
so you get this whole bunch of golfers that are sitting around, they're playing golf, and then they go into the clubhouse. And the main topic of conversation was, I want to buy this, but I'm afraid to spend the money. And the more I probed into this, I was like, okay, so you're worried about your money running out. And then I started trying to do the calculations. We're like, well, how long are you going to live? And it was like, oh, wow, this is actually really complex. And I love complex financial problems. So I started looking into it, and I looked at all the annuities, and I just, these don't make sense. It's like they felt to me very structured in favor of the insurance companies. And I thought, this doesn't work. I can't recommend them to buy annuities. They don't have a defined benefit pension. And I kept reading, trying to find out. I said, surely somebody has to solve this problem. This is a global problem. And I started reading about this thing called the Tontine. And I'd never heard of Tontines at this point in my life. But the more I read about it, the more sense it made. And it was like, the idea is that, look, we've got 1,000 people. They're all moving into retirement. Some of them are going to pass away quite soon. Some of them are going to pass away in 5 years' time. Some will live 15, 20 years and to their official average life expectancy. And some of them are going to be blessed with much longer lives, and they're going to end up living 25, 30, even 35 years. And it's like, how can you plan if you don't know which one of those you are in advance? So the Tontine, the papers that I was reading about this were saying, look, this was the most successful pension ever launched. It's 400 years old. And the idea is that everybody puts their money into a pool, and you share the risk of living longer. Everybody gets a normal investment the same way you get with the EPF. But the rule is, if you're dead, you don't need the money. And whatever monies are left over in your account at that point are shared with the other members to support them in case they live much longer lives. And I just thought, this is such a simple concept, and there's so many papers about it. Why has nobody done it? So I started working on this, and I started contacting the experts around the world, and we started putting together papers and publishing them. And to my absolute shock, I think it was 2020, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the 38 most developed countries, they come out with this report about the future of pensions, and they have this whole chapter dedicated to tontines, saying they're better for governments because they take the risk off the government. They're better for savers because they get more income than they would if they invested in an annuity. And that they're much safer because you're not dealing with a fractionally reserved financial institution. You've got a fully funded pension scheme that can never run out of money. And this is what I've been doing for 8 years now. So in 2022, the OECD went further. They issued a legal instrument, which is more or less binding on their members. And essentially, they said to the 38 OECD countries, you need to adapt your pension system. You need to take your EPF type pension systems and make lifetime income mandatory by default going forward, even if only for a portion of the retirement balance, which it makes absolute sense. And now what you've seen is there's multiple countries around the world all coming in saying, look, we need retirement income. How do we do this tontine-based income? And even President Trump, I think 1 month ago, passed an executive order saying that every American should have access to tontines. So, it's really starting to take off.
Okay, interesting. But, not everyone understand tontine the way we understand it, and then we even have, some act that is that considered, this understanding of the old fiction, the old concept of tontine as illegal. So perhaps you can, enlighten our listeners that what tontine really is and what the modern tontine, will be different than the old tontine.
Yeah, well, let me just clarify up front. So there's a different type of tontine. We're not talking about that. That is a savings club. Okay. It's I think it's defined as a rotating organized savings pool or something like that.
In Malaysia we have this term kutu.
Kutu, yes.
So that's or kutu, and then people associate that kutu with the tontine, which is totally two different concepts.
But there is a commonality. It's people trying to help each other with their finances. I think that's why the name is there. But we're not talking about chit funds. We're not talking about kutus. We're talking about the most successful pension in the world over the last 400 years. If you look at Mercer does a report every year, and they talk about the safest pensions in the world. They're always Scandinavia. They're always Denmark, Finland, Norway, or Sweden. And all of these firms operate basically like a tontine pension basis. And that's why we've chosen to base the organization out of Sweden, because they have probably the best pension system in the world, and it is run like a tontine pension. But let me try and explain for your listeners what it is. Normally I do this visually, but we can do it this way. So let's say we're looking at the EPF. They're doing a great job. I think the dividend last year was 6.4%.
Yes.
So they're paying you. You got X amount of money in the EPF. They're going to pay you 6.4% per year. So you're still going to have the same amount of capital at the end of the year because they've only given you the earnings. So you've still got the same amount of capital. But you're not spending that capital. You could be, but you're afraid to run out. So let's say, for example, that we tontinized the EPF. Essentially what we're saying is that we're going to allow you to start spending some of the capital at a rate that we know, based upon the tontine principle of everybody sharing the risk of living longer, that it will never run out, even if you live to age 120. And the effect this has is that instead of paying people 6.4% every year, what we do is we add an extra amount of capital, and that capital, let's say for a 60-year-old, is an additional. Let's say they have 1.5% chance of dying that year. Every member, all the 65-year-olds. So essentially, what we do is we pay you the 6.4% plus the 1.5%. So now you're more or less getting 8% per year, which is already an improvement. But what happens over time is that as members start passing away and no longer need the money, whatever's left over in their account can now be shared with the other members, increasing their balances, increasing the amount they're making. And as they age, their chances of dying are going up from 1.5% per month to 2% to 2.5%, and so on. So effectively what it means is that you're receiving the earnings of the EPF plus an amount of capital, and that capital is rising every year. So now you've got this, instead of this flat payment that's getting destroyed by inflation over time, and you're afraid to touch the capital, You know that the capital will never run out. You're getting a higher payment, and it's going to rise over time to offset the effect of inflation. And this is the basis of what we're doing. And every government in the world will adopt this within the next 5 to 10 years. So it's definitely the way to go. It's ethical. It's all fair. It's all designed to be 100% fair. And we can just plug and play it into, if you have a good pension scheme like the EPF, we can just plug it in almost immediately.
Okay, so that's very interesting. Okay, perhaps you can also share from your own understanding and from your own reading and research, how can that Tontine be really ideal for an Islamic finance concept, Islamic finance product, and maybe as well, if that is good, would it be something that takaful or insurance company can also offer, or you don't think so because of some reasons?
Well, I'll start with the insurance companies. Could they offer it? They could, but
Okay.
but they don't add anything. They don't add anything. When you give your money, and I'm not talking about takaful insurers because I'm not deep enough into that space.
Okay.
But if you look at a traditional insurance company, you give your money to them. You're a creditor. Yeah, they owe you money, but they've agreed to pay you back that money in a kind of a form of interest, and you're paying them. You're paying them to provide the guarantee that this will continue. It's not necessary. The OECD has come out and said it's not necessary. There's 100 research papers, probably 50 of which are on our website, saying that actually this doesn't make it safer. It doesn't make it safer. So if it was offered by an insurance company, it would there'd be less value for money because they have to pay the cost of the guarantee, and they have capital tied up that comes to them from their shareholders, and that has to be paid for. So literally, it's just going to hold the returns down.
I see. Okay, we are running out of time. I think we have interesting sharing from you, but maybe to close our interview today, perhaps you can give your final words. What's the vision of a dignified retirement looks like, and maybe you can how you visualize, or how you your vision of how Tontine Trust can work very well, work perfectly for in this retirement issue. And in Malaysia, actually, we also have a private retirement scheme, PRS. What is your opinion that perhaps this Tontine Trust can be one of the PRS product? Totally different kind of PRS offering in the future. Who knows? Okay, what's your opinion on this?
Well, if I remember correctly, the PRS is a private version of the EPF.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same problem. Yeah. They'll do a great job managing your money. They'll grow it to a certain point, but you don't know how many more years you have left on this planet. Neither do they. So they can't help you. It's literally you're guessing at how much you should be drawing every month. The way we see it is that Tontines will take over the world. They will replace all existing pension structures. The private retirement funds will become Tontines. They'll have to, once they realize how popular this is with consumers. But the idea is that there was some wonderful examples I've had over the years. But essentially, what people have been saying is that kind of how it works at the moment is that the parents go into retirement. They've got a big retirement fund set up that they're drawing into, and the children want an inheritance, but the parents don't want to give them that money now because they might need it. So effectively what's happening is that the children are waiting on the parents to pass away to get their inheritance, and that's horrible.
I saw, there's a one video viral quite, recently, few days back in India, like the son and daughter-in-law abandoned their old mother, 80-year-old mother, on the roadside. So this, I mean, like, this is happening. Yes, this happened. This, this is real thing happen?
Yeah, and
And
it's
happening.
horrible. But
Yes.
so either the parent has no money and they are a liability to the
Yes.
family,
Yes.
or they have lots of money, but the family, whether consciously or not, is waiting on the parent to pass away. Now, if you look at the tontine, the way the tontine works, you put the money in. We're paying you for living. The longer you live, the more money you're going to inherit from those that weren't as blessed with a long life as you were. So your income is just going to keep going up. So now we've got this reason why children are going to be taking so much better care of their parents.
Yes. So now really you can see your parents as real antique that you have, increased over time, right?
Finally, you value your parents the way you should. Perhaps slightly for the wrong reasons, but at least you're doing it.
Yes.
But the other thing about the tontine is that when there's a wonderful meme that I have, I think, on my Twitter account about this guy that's chain smoking cigarettes. And they're saying, why are you smoking so much? That's bad for your health. You're going to die. He said, you haven't seen how much I have in my retirement fund. I'm not going to last longer than 2 years anyway. And so I may as well enjoy it while I can. But the whole point is that the moment you join a tontine, according to the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, which is Einstein's old university, the moment you join, it enhances your retirement wealth by 87% with zero added risk. And so you've now got the money that you can live on. Now you have a massive incentive to go and eat healthier and to exercise more. And, so it changes lives. I have read statistics over the years that tontines, people that join tontines live longer. Maybe it's thanks to the family. Maybe the family is taking better care of them. But the one biggest thing that we've been criticized over for the last 7 years, they said, "Oh, but in the tontine, you lose the money. If you pass away, you lose the money. The family gets nothing." So we've been working on this, and we're going to announce it in the next couple of months. But essentially, what we've done is we've created a family tontine trust now. So essentially what happens is that you put your money into the trust, and instead of just it being linked to your life, you add all your family members. And what happens then is that if you pass away, the tontine continues paying an income to your spouse, to your children for the rest of their lives. So obviously it's not going to be as high as the amount you were receiving before, but what it means is that you now know that your family is going to be taken care of. And everybody I've spoken to is just come back and said, actually, this is what I want. I need to know the family's taken care of. I need to know they're still going to have money. I think Malaysia has realized this. I think I read something about it a few weeks ago, and they're looking to do it. But the point is, we know how to do this now, and we can plug it in. And I think what you're going to find is that this specific version, the family tontine, is going to end up, people are going to love it. It just brings so much peace of mind.
Interesting. Okay. There's a Nobel Prize winner. I forgot his name, but I think I saw it on your website that mentioned that, retirement problem is like the hardest problem to solve. Do you remember? Is it William Sharp? No.
Yeah, the Sharp ratio. Yeah, Bill Sharp.
Yeah. And I just want to confirm that one. I communicated with him and he confirmed, yes, I was the one who mentioned that. So I think this is a really great interview. Who knows, even the scholars, the academician, if you want to start the research, you can come up with your own Nobel Prize if you start researching into this tontine. How can tontine solve this most difficult finance or retirement problems? Okay, thank you so much, Dean, for sharing your valuable insights today. We have learned that financial freedom is not just about savings, but also about how we prepare for an aging society, manage pension funds, and rethink system like EPF withdrawals to ensure long-term dignity. Retirement with dignity is about more than just money. It's about security, about well-being, and living with purpose. So private pension may well be a crucial part of Malaysia's future, ensuring that our golden years remain truly golden. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on IKIM FM. Until next time, take care and Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Dean.
Thanks,
See you again.
Susanna. See
All
you.
right, bye.
Bye.